welcome to the first episode of Technician Talk. The aim of this series is to highlight the wonderful work technicians do here at Manchester, to share their inspirational stories and talk about challenges they've faced during their career. Technician Talk is also there to start discussions around issues that are affecting the technical community, not only at Manchester, but nationally as well. In this first episode, we've been joined by 4 technicians, Scott, Emma, Tom and Toria, to discuss our different experiences during the campus shutdown and challenges around returning to work.
So my name's Scot Miller. I work at the B15 model making workshop, which is part of the School of Environment, Education and Development, and within that for the Manchester School of Architecture. So my job is to help to maintain, along with a small team, to maintain and supervise a model making workshop, which serves the students by providing consultation for their design development, and we kind of carry out discussions with them as their ideas grow, and that serves both the BA and the Masters of Architecture programs at the Manchester School of Architecture.
Hi, my name's Emma. I work in the Faculty of Science and Engineering and work in the Department of Chemistry. My role involves working in mass spectrometry facility, running samples on a day-to-day basis for students, postgraduate researchers and external bodies. And I also carry out maintenance of the equipment.
Hi, my name's Tom Bishop. I work in the geography labs, which unsurprisingly are in the geography department. We help out with lab work. We run geochemical analysis. We help out with field work. We obviously do quite a bit of maintenance and teaching, and we offer advice to any of our lab users who are about to undertake project work.
I am Toria Stafford. I am the Deputy Health and Safety Advisor in the Department of Chemistry at UoM, and I, along with my boss, am responsible for day-to-day health and safety matters all across the department. So I work with everyone from technicians, including Emma and Mike, and then also researchers from PhD students, master's students, all the way up to their PIs and everything, and just make sure that everyone gets to do super cool stuff, but keep themselves safe.
And I'm Mike. I'm the teaching labs manager in chemistry. My job is to manage the teaching labs. I have a team of 6 wonderful technicians that help me do this, and we can see up to 600 students a week pass through our labs. So if you could each tell me about what happened when you got the email on the 17th of March saying that the campus runs closed to non-essential work, and how did you implement the shutdown of your local area, and what do you think we could have done better?
Well, for us, it was much like when we shut down for the Christmas closure period. So we have quite well-rehearsed procedures for putting the lab to bed. It was a bit unexpected, but we have quite a good protocol for doing it. I guess the strangest thing was not knowing when we were going to be able to turn everything back on. And for those unfamiliar with this kind of lab equipment, sometimes the shutdown periods can be a few days to turn equipment off properly, and even once they're put to bed, as it were, they still need maintenance occasionally, and it was very strange not knowing how or when we were going to be able to get back in the building to refill gases or check certain connections and that kind of stuff. As it happens, that was all fairly straightforward, but it was very strange turning everything off and not knowing when we were going to be going back to it all.
I had a very similar experience. I suspect a lot of our equipment sort of overlaps, especially our instrumentation. But when I shut down the lab, it was right, well, I've still got to come in and top certain instruments up with cryogens and keep them all running. Emma, did you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, well, obviously we were told that we had to leave the building at 5 o'clock, and our immediate reaction was that we had to run a lot of samples for students and process them in that time. And it was right up until 5 o'clock. Students were coming in and they needed results to take home with them so that they could finish their projects. So it was an extremely busy time for us. At one point, I was switching the computers back on so that I could do that. And, you know, we would ideally, we would have preferred it if they had perhaps sent the students home first and wound down that working, and then we could, that would allow us more time to run the samples, process them, and then shut the instruments down.
Did you have any issues like that, Scott?
Our situation was, I mean, I think like a lot of people, we preempted it was gonna happen. We were gonna have to close it at some point. But our initial concern was getting things to the students, making sure that the projects were kind of in hand, so they were able to finish them from home if possible. Simply because we had no idea when people would be able to come back on campus, so we didn't want them you know, not being able to access their work. So we kind of ensured as quickly as possible that people were able to take basic equipment with them, like basic hand tools and materials, and their projects, whatever state they were in. We were fortunate to have, if I remember rightly, we had a morning, and then we got an email around lunchtime that said that we need to be out, we need to like get everyone out by the end of the day. And so upon returning from lunch, we kind of told everybody this was the situation, and to kind of prepare accordingly to, you know, get their projects to a state where they were able to take them away. And fortunately, we've got a really good relationship with our students, and they didn't kind of give us a hard time about that. They just, you know, did as much as they could, and were out by the deadline. But similarly to what has been said already, the actual workshop itself had to be kind of prepared for some kind of shutdown. And it was strange not knowing when we would reopen again. So certain machines had to be sort of put into a state of hibernation. And fortunately, we did end up coming back, which I'll probably explain a little bit more shortly. We did end up coming back sooner than we thought, and so it wasn't as longer term shutdown in terms of the machines as it might have been.
So you touched on something there about the relationship you have with your students, how you were there to give them advice, and you made sure they had everything they needed to carry on with the project at home, or everything was completed before you left. Do you think the shutdown was made easier because of the relationship you have with your students?
We have a very strong relationship with our students, and they will support our stand on things. It certainly feels very positive, and we have a good time out of it. And I think that's what they enjoy, is that it's not, whilst we are doing things safely, we're able to have a kind of laugh and joke as we work, which you know, who wants to go to work and just be kind of serious all the time? We like to kind of lighten it up a little bit, and it is fun. So that really helped us in that situation, because they didn't, like I said earlier, they don't really give us a hard time about it. It was just the circumstance that everyone found themselves in, and they were supportive in, you know, helping us to get them out the door in a safe way, and kind of trusted us to continue to support them as best we can.
Right. So, from a health and safety point of view, Toria, what was your experiences of the shutdown?
I think it was really weird, because we didn't really know much more information than we'd had to pass on. And, you know, it was literally, you need your department shut by 5. And obviously we have students, PIs, technicians, like all members of staff from all across the building coming to us going, does this mean this? Does it mean this? How strict are they being? Like, and everything like that. And it was kind of a lot of managing expectations and then going around making sure that when equipment was shut down, that it was shut down safely and that no one accidentally left a valve open, or, you know, so that there was a leak of some compressed gas, or, you know, that people weren't trying to quench reactions really, really quickly just so that they were done and the lab was shut and everything like that. So we kind of had to strike this very fine balance between going around going, you need to be out by 5, and just people rushing to get that done. It was difficult not knowing everything, all the unknowns that were going on, and at the same time as making sure that everything was safe. It's like, well, what's not going to be safe if we leave it for a long time and if we don't know what's coming back in the building and everything like that as well. So it was an interesting couple of days with the shutdown day and then the measures having to be put in place afterwards.
So we're now at the point with all our labs and workshops safely shut down. Can you tell me what happened in the following weeks, how your role has changed and what challenges you faced?
I think our main priority was something that you've already touched on, is things like instruments that had to have cryofills, otherwise it was a health and safety matter, because, you know, the last thing we want is an NMR quenching or something like that, or, you know, pyrophorics being stored in glove boxes not having their inert gas supply and things like that. So it was very much, you know, in the couple of days after the initial we're shutting down was, right, well, what does the building need doing to carry on functioning and stay safe while there's nobody in here checking things on like a daily basis and everything like that. So the following weeks were a flurry of emails back and forth going, well, this instrument needs doing, but this person's not allowed in the building. What's the team that we need to be able to come into the building? What permissions do we need to get to make sure that they can come in the building safely and still, you know, follow the university rules and the government guidelines in terms of unnecessary journeys and everything like that. And we'd kind of had some inkling that it was coming, as I think most people around the university and departments did, but it was still quite a, you know, just trying to get everything up and running as soon as possible so that, you know, equipment wasn't damaged or equipment was safe and everything like that. So it was, yeah, busy.
Yeah. So Scott and Tom, both of you have worked from home through various parts of the shutdown. What has that been like, and what challenges did you face?
So one of the reasons I chose to go into working as a technician in universities was because I've always looked for jobs where I never have to bring my work home with me. And, you know, one of the nice things, both my partner and I both have jobs like that. And so when we are at home, we don't think about work and we don't even talk about work very much. And that all got completely turned on its head overnight when the university closed and we started working from home. And it was very strange. I mean, we had to build an office. In fact, we had to build 2 offices, you know, where we could, so we could get stuff done. And just getting into that mode of working was very strange for me. I started by trying to wrap up a load of admin, analytical reports and, you know, emails to external collaborators, letting them know what's going on. But when I ran out of that kind of work to do, I found myself in a very different role. I was drawing on my analytical and sort of statistical and programming skills, which is something I've always kind of had in the background and occasionally used at work. But, you know, I'm a technician really. I normally get stuck inside machines with spanners. And now I'm doing quite a bit of programming and analytical support. So in a sense, my job has changed a little. And I think quite a few of the research staff and students were perhaps surprised, or they learned something new about my skill set in all of this when I started offering that kind of support. But I have to say, it's not something I particularly want to carry on doing full time, and I'm quite looking forward to getting back to practical work rather than work in front of a screen.
Cool. Yeah, one thing I've struggled with is childcare, and then both me and my partner balancing looking after the children, both trying to work at the same time, and then finding a time when we can actually both just turn our laptops off, you know, and not work and be normal. Have you come across anything like that, Scott?
Yeah, quite similar, I suppose. In that, yeah, come back home and have to turn the dining table into an office table. So we've not had a meal at the dining table in quite a few months because it's just been converted into a workstation. But that's not the end of the world. But as Tom says, I wouldn't like it to be like that indefinitely. I like the separation of work being at work and having your home life completely separate. But it certainly turned that on its head. We kind of adapted to have so we're normally very, very practical in our job. It's all about problem solving in person. As the problems are occurring, we're discussing things and coming up with practical solutions, which obviously is quite a hard thing to do if you're not in a room with the people. So we adapted to deliver Zoom technician tutorials, which worked quite well. We were quite good at being able to get that up and running quickly and still kind of allow people to engage with us and reassure them that it is possible to do certain things from home. It's obviously not the full extent of what we would normally have access to, but people were appreciative of the situation and that they adjusted their expectations accordingly. So we were able to deliver, and we were fortunate enough to arrange to get basic toolkits sent out to certain students as well that didn't have those things. So it was interesting. It's still interesting, but it did work. We were able to get some interesting things out of it. One thing which we did to recognise that effort was we had some conversations with architectural practices, and we were able to set up a scheme which essentially recognised the students' work from home specifically. Which they all sort of submitted to, and then at the end of the term we were able to do an awards presentation with loads of members of the school, which was great. There was around 300 people in a huge Zoom meeting, and got to give out some awards for that, which was great. It was just great to show them that their work from home was still just as important towards the degree. So yeah, it's been interesting, but as Tom says, I'm looking forward to actually get back on the campus to some extent to actually deal with the problems in person, which is really what I got into this job for.
Emma, I know your experience has been very different through this shutdown. Can you tell us a bit about what happened to you and what you've been doing over the past couple of months?
Yeah, we were furloughed on 21st of April, and up until that point we were assuming that we would be working from home, and up until that point it was a case of having to find perhaps courses to attend online and filling up the time with meetings from the head of school, from professional services. So when I got the email to be furloughed, we kind of had an idea that was going to happen. But 2 days later, we also got the email from Nancy about the financial implications. So the combination of the two, I think, had a bit of an impact. And, it's feeling a bit unstable and a bit in limbo about the whole thing, really. But I managed to stay connected by attending the meetings, which I think really helped, because there was a lot of information in those meetings and useful to understand what was happening across the university at the time. There were a number of courses still that we could attend. Thermoscientific did some online courses, and there were some wellbeing courses advertised throughout the process as well. But I mean, aside from that, I'm quite a busy person anyway, and there's a lot of projects that I do from home, some research of my own, some papers that I could write, that was kept me going for a few weeks. There were some times where if there's nothing to do, you can feel a bit sort of low, a bit bored, and struggle to find things. So I try to keep myself busy as much as possible, really. So yeah, I mean, being connected was probably the most important thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing I've tried to do with my team members that have been put on furlough. I've worked throughout the whole shutdown, both on and off campus, but I've tried to keep in touch with all of them, have coffee meetings every so often, because like you've said, Emma, it's unusual for technicians to not be in work, to not be in a lab or in a workshop. So after that, with now, starting to return to campus, what challenges have you faced in returning to campus? Because obviously public transport's not up and running properly yet. I've got childcare issues, which is why I'm only on site 3 days a week. Tom, have you found anything?
Well, I've been back a couple of times just to check on things in the labs and do a few bits and pieces. But yeah, I'm not back yet for various reasons. But I'm kind of I'm keeping a close eye on the minutiae of the guidance documents that the university is issuing, in the hope that it has changed. I think it has changed recently, and I think I will be back at work soon. The rest of my team are already back. So fingers crossed I can get back on site soon. But yeah, when I was on campus, it was very peaceful in a way, and everything I've heard from my colleagues in the lab have said that obviously they have far fewer people in the lab at any one time, and they're a bit more spread out and all the rest of it. And it actually seems everyone's really pleased to be back in there, the PhD students in particular. So I think it's quite a good atmosphere. I'm quite looking forward to getting back in and seeing everyone, to be honest.
I mentioned earlier that our lockdown of the workshops ended up not being that long term, and that was because we got involved with the university's effort to produce PPE for the NHS, and so we kind of adapted the equipment that we have for that purpose, and ended up going in. I think it was a couple of weeks after the initial lockdown, we started to produce these visors in conjunction with some other departments, and we've basically not stopped. We've been doing that either between 3 or 4 days a week, depending on the component manufacturers that runs that we did. And so it's been strange because we've been going in, but there's been nobody there. We've not been going in the sense of going in and reopening the workshop. So we've just sort of been going in and being on our own, locking ourselves in. So we've not seen that many people. But we're just at the stage now where that's kind of coming to an end. I should be finished with it tomorrow, hopefully, and then we're kind of in the midst of planning how we would reopen in September. How we're going to accept students back, which is challenging. As Tom said, there's a lot of paperwork to kind of get your head around and understand what the policies are, and they're changing every week or every day, so you have to constantly keep kind of reviewing it, but I'm reasonably confident that we can figure something out. We just have to keep the lines of communication open, so everybody's as clear as possible about what is actually going on, and I'm sure we'll get there. I'm sure it'll be fine one way or another. I
think for me, it was quite odd because obviously once the building was shut down and we'd got kind of the rota in place to check on all the equipment, you know, and we were coming into campus once a week and everything like that, then it was full blown into, right, okay, now we need to start planning for if and when we go back, because obviously there are massive health and safety implications with people coming into the buildings being shut down for what turned out to be, you know, nearly 4 months in some parts of the chemistry building and things like that. So for me, it was very much thinking about this from, you know, end of April time. We've been thinking about all of this startup thing. So coming back into the building, you know, more than just the weekly checks and having people starting up research and coming into the labs and things like that, it was putting into practice stuff that we'd been planning and talking about for 2 months. And I think one of the things that was quite difficult for us was, bar the labs that were already that stayed open for helping with COVID related research, chemistry was one of the first buildings on campus to reopen. So all the little niggles and the little problems that, well, not so much problems, but issues that cropped up and everything like that, we were obviously one of the first buildings to come across those things, or things that we didn't think would be issues were issues, things that we thought would be issues weren't issues. And that was quite difficult at times, because nobody has done this before. No one's come, you know, had a pandemic shutdown of this extent, and, you know, everything like that. So it was very much walking into unknown territory. And obviously our reopening and other buildings reopenings is feeding into the reopenings of those in the later stages and things like that. So it's been tiptoeing step by step to get through everything and get everything up and running. And then you get one thing sorted and it's, now we need to start thinking about this and this. So obviously originally it was mainly focused on researchers, that they'd be the first ones back, and now we've kind of got that up and running. It's now shifting the focus to, okay, what do we do about students and, you know, undergrad labs? How are they going to function? Because there's no way you can have 300 people in an undergrad lab with the current conditions. Research labs is a bit different, because obviously you've got combinations of, well, you can do a bit of synthesis or you can do a bit of lab work and then you can do a day at home. Whereas with undergrad labs, it's all of these people need to be doing all this. So it's very, very much focusing on all of the different areas that we've got going on and everything like that. So it's ever evolving, and I like it's been touched on by other people as well. It's you know, obviously with government advice constantly changing, that means university guidance and advice changes, which means we need to change our guidance and advice. So it's ever evolving.
Initially, I had to check the public transport was suitable to travel on. So, I mean, my first point of call was checking that, you know, that was safe to do so. And then once I returned to work, it was a really different kind of environment. Obviously, with attending the meetings, they've been really useful in getting information and feeling confident and reassured that the university is, you know, taking on board some of the concerns of staff and addressing the measures that need to be in place. So I kind of had this I was expecting everything to be in place when I got there, but the reality is that it's still a process, and as Toria has said, it's still evolving. So it wasn't quite what I expected to be. So there were certain things that I had to put into place when I arrived at work, like things like hand wash, making up IPA solutions, making signs up for the labs to ensure there's a cleaning procedure involved, and yeah, trying to get an idea of what sort of risk assessments that the line manager had put into place beforehand to ensure that all the staff arriving back on campus in our lab were feeling safe.
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a very difficult period of change for everyone at the university. Given that, if you could give one bit of advice to any technician returning to work soon, what would it be? Let's start with Tom.
I would say it's worth having a read of the university guidance documents and policy documents. Even though line managers are the ones responsible for kind of administering that on your behalf, I found it really helpful to understand their decision-making process and seeing the guidance that they'd read and were following, kind of getting it firsthand, if you like, rather than trying to guess at what was trying to be achieved. I thought that was really helpful, both government guidance, and there's quite specific government guidance for laboratories and for universities, but also the university guidance documents, which are, I mean, they're all available on StaffNet and stuff. So it's by no means compulsory, but I found it really helpful.
Just for technicians to stay connected with the line manager and try to get an idea of what they'll be faced with when they return to work. If they're anxious or worried, then, you know, try and then get a picture of what you'll be walking into to ease that anxiety.
Scott?
I would say similarly a message of the importance of connectivity, really, and that making sure that the people that are around you that are you're either responsible for or you know, you work around in a team are on the same page, like you're having conversations and you understand where things are going, even if it isn't entirely clear, just so that everybody feels that they're not alone in this situation, really. I think it's really important so that people feel, you know, that whenever they do come back and however they do come back, that they're going to be supported in this, no matter what the situation is. So yeah, just a message of, I suppose, positivity and openness towards dealing with whatever the challenges are going to be come September.
And Toria?
I think a lot of, and this isn't just limited to technicians, but I think it will definitely apply when they are back in the building, if they're not already. It's that you can't expect things to be back to the way that they were before. It is very, very different, and it's a different way of working, both in terms of the work that you'll be expected to do and how you'll be working with those in your team, as well as, you know, other teams or, you know, researchers and things like that. I think that's one of the biggest things I found, is that, you know, depending on who you are and what you're doing, different people have very different expectations, and sometimes it can be quite hard to kind of manage those expectations and make sure that, you know, everything that people are wanting to do is actually realistic, considering all of these additional measures that we do have to put in place just to make sure that people can get some form of work done but still remain safe and, you know, keep themselves COVID free.
Yep. Well,
can I just also add to that as well, in case that technicians perhaps aren't communicating as much with the line manager now, is that there's always the health and safety team that you can approach, and the technical services manager as well, that you can try and at least try and find some more information about from. Yeah.
Well, it's one thing I've tried to keep in mind and I've struggled with at times, to be honest, is the communication. You know, usually we can walk into someone's office or someone's lab, someone's workshop and have a conversation. It's been really difficult doing that without, you know, that space where we can, as technicians, talk to each other and whatnot. And it's going to be really important going forward that we remain open, communicate with each other, and understand that no one's having an easy time at the moment, and we should be there to support each other. Thank you, everyone. We've run out of time. I think this whole conversation has highlighted the amazing work we're doing as technicians, trying to keep everyone safe, reopen campus, and to try and keep teaching going, keep research going. It's not been an easy job. It's not going to be easy for the next few months or years, who knows. But as technicians, we'll do what we do and we find ways around the problem. Again, thank you all for taking part, and I'll see you soon. So at the end of this video, you'll find a series of links and ways to connect with other technicians and continue the conversation.